It's week 25 and we are on letter Y. This one is really fun. It's got some swatch details and also a really simple, just straight line serif that is bracketed. So we're gonna start with a fresh layer and just draw a little Y sketch to use as our basis. So draw a Y kind of like that, and that'll be your basis for your letter. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'm 5, that's good. So now I'm gonna tap the N, reduce the opacity, and we'll work on our next version of the sketch from here. So this Y does have some really minor thick and thin contrast. So what I'm gonna do is start over here and I'm gonna draw one part of the line like that. And then I'm gonna add the thickness, just a little bit thick, and come around like that. And that part is less thick, just by a little. So what determines what is thick and thin is the principles of calligraphy. So upstrokes are thin. Let me get a brush pen real quick. So if I use a brush pen and I drew a letter Y, I'd use light pressure and heavy pressure depending on where I am in the stroke. So our heaviest parts are here and here, and that's gonna be the same here. And then the swashes are subjective. So that might just help a little with visualizing why we do the thick and thins, where we do them. All right, back to my other brush. So I'll bring this around. And again, no need to be too precise here because we're still working on our sketch version. So I'll make a little swash like that. And then same here. So this part is gonna be roughly the same thickness as this part. So I'm just gonna eyeball it and it'll thin out so that here and here are similar to the same width. And then I'll come up and around, again, keeping in mind where my thick and thin areas go, and then add a swash on that side as well. And again, we can refine that in our coming sketches. And then across the top for my serif, I'm just gonna draw a straight line fairly close to what I've already drawn. And then when we have a bracketed serif, it connects like this versus going straight into it. That is unbracketed. So I'm just gonna kind of draw a little loop and around. So it's still a pretty fine, thin serif, but has a little detail. So now we've got our second version of our Y sketch. I'll delete out my first just so we don't get too confused, and I'll reduce the opacity on our latest layer, add a new layer, and now we can kind of draw our potentially final version of the letter. So I'm just gonna freehand this one largely, kind of following my lines as a guideline. And then I will refine it after we color it in. So go ahead and just do the same. And again, turn your page as you need to get better angles. If you want to use some arcs, you can. If it doesn't work that well, just freehand it or take it in smaller pieces. Like if I take that piece a little smaller instead of doing the full arc, I can use some of the arcs to my advantage. Whoop. All right, so now I'll just drag and drop my color in and see where I might need to touch things up. I'm gonna delete out my sketch layer so I can really see what's going on. And overall, it's not too bad. I might thin this out a wee bit. And you really have to learn to trust your visual instinct. and really go with your gut on what you think will look best. Because a lot of lettering, although we have certain rules, a lot of it is not mathematical. You are doing things based on what looks optically best versus what is mathematically perfect. And some of that will just come with time and experience. And then some is just personal preference. All right, I'm pretty happy with that. It's a little different than my initial letter Y, but I might even like it slightly better. And that's another thing you can do is draw like 4 versions of your letter and then pick which one you like the best, since they do come out a little different every time. So now I will copy that and paste it over into my final document. And then next week we will do our final letter Z, and I will also film the detail work, and I'll put both those videos up in the same week so we can be completely finished with this series. And then several of you asked if I would share my final piece, so I will do that in the final blog post as well. I will see you next week for letter Z.